and a very warm welcome to another edition of World Panorama. Here we are getting you your weekly dose of major international news with a perspective. I'm Sana Khan. Before we get to detailed reports, here's a look at the top stories this week. Benjamin Netanyahu earns slender victory in Israeli polls. World Panorama takes a look at the challenges that he faces in the much likely third term. Barack Obama opens second term with a bold return to the White House. In a speech, Obama delivers optimistic vision for the future. Thousands of world leaders gather for the World Economic Forum in Davos. Look at the global challenges ahead in 2013. And also, we take a look at the buzzing tourism in Jammu and Kashmir. Winter sports attract revelers from far and wide. This week, the focus is on the political elections in Israel. Israel's hawkish Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Wednesday won a narrow victory at the polls with his position seemingly secure for the time being, but the stunning results have seen his right-wing bloc strength severely diminished. The results have forced Netanyahu to scramble for support outside his natural allies, which critics feel augurs well for the Middle East peace process that he shunned during his last 4 years at the helm of affairs. Middle East analysts say the results of this week's Israeli elections could set the stage for an improved relationship with Washington and impact the future of peace talks with the Palestinians and efforts to curb Iran's nuclear program. We will be talking more about these developments around Israel. This week on the show, I welcome Qamar Agha, foreign affairs expert. Thank you so much, sir, for joining me on the show. But before we go to him and get his perspective, let's take a look at this report.
Israelis awoke to a new political landscape on 23rd January after hawkish Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu emerged the bruised winner of Israel's election, claiming victory despite unexpected losses to resurgent centre-left challengers. In Jerusalem, residents expressed mixed feelings about the election results, which brought about new faces that are expected to play a role in the political discourse of the state.
I think for an election that was contested and of concern to a lot of us, Israel voted smart. There's an opportunity now for the government to eliminate the influence, the over-influence of the religious parties.
I think the results are not surprising because I think Mr. Netanyahu, most of his agenda was a foreign agenda.
Meanwhile, in his victory speech, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said preventing a nuclear-armed Iran would be the primary challenge facing the new government he intends to form.
First, strong security in the face of the great challenges before us. And the first challenge was and remains preventing Iran from obtaining nuclear weapons.
Netanyahu said he intended to form as broad a governing coalition as possible, suggesting he would go beyond a traditional alliance with other right-wing and religious partners.
It is an open contest right now, and a lot depends on how the parties play their cards. But it is going to be very interesting for the next month or so until the coalition is formed.
The results put Netanyahu on course for a third term in office, perhaps leading a hardline coalition that would promote Jewish settlement on occupied land. Official vote results will be announced on 30th January. After that, President Shimon Peres is likely to ask Netanyahu, as leader of the biggest bloc in parliament, to try to form a government.
All right, now let's get on with the discussion. Let's ask Mr. Qamar Agha a couple of questions that are imperative at this point in time. Now, it's almost certain that Netanyahu has won, but there are also people saying that how, with his numbers, he's won with a very slender majority and he's actually emerged weaker.
No, in fact, yes, his number of seats have gone down. And second thing, that it's a 50-50 divide. He got 60 seats almost, and the other coalition, the far right and religious organizations, they have also got almost 60 seats, So they have 120 seats in Knesset, which we call parliament,
Right.
So there is a division. But in Israel, number of times this has happened in the past, they try to form broader coalition or national unity government. So this time also, the attempt is going to be. And Netanyahu is emerging in that. Second thing, that his agenda, it would be difficult for him to implement. Third thing, this many expert or strategists, in Israel believe that this government will not last longer because there are too many differences within the coalition, whatsoever comes to emerge. The other party, one more party has emerged, which is very new.
Yes, Yesh Atid party
Yesh Atid.
of Yair Lapid.
He's a newcomer into the politics, but he has been able to generate support among the middle class society. There is a social and economic crisis in Israel at the moment. I shouldn't call it crisis, but problems are there. Which are very serious, rent is going high, inflation is there, prices of essential commodities are very high, youth are finding difficult to rent a house, and living standards are high, hospitals are crowded due to many factors, education reforms, they want more universities, more colleges, prices to come down, and the taxes are going up and budget deficit is high around $10 billion, which they want to bring down, which means taxes will go up and spending will cut.
Right.
So these are the challenges, the next government would be facing. Apart from this, the Palestinian issue, Iranian issue are there. Security is very concerned, In this election, the national issues were on the top priority, social and economic issues. Then second number was security, and on the third number, the peace talks with the Palestinians.
Right. So that's like a broader perspective of what's in store for the next government that will, take over. But let's talk a bit about the coalition that we are looking at. What are the combinations that one can look at over here? Is it more rightist, or as this new party that has come in, which is more centrist?
The new party has already announced that they would join the government. They would be willing. They have 19 seats, but these seats are very crucial, So they have already said, if you look at otherwise, there is not much difference between the political parties. They can come together. Like the new party, Lapid has also said that he has economic and social agenda, but on Palestinian, he said he wants talks to continue with the Palestinian. He's in favor of retaining major settlements in occupied territories. He also believes Jerusalem is undivided, will not accept the division of Jerusalem. So Netanyahu also, if you look at Netanyahu has also come down, from he's saying that he's willing to talk to the Palestinian if they give up the militancy. There are with number of demands, So they're coming closer, and I'm optimistic they'll come together, but it would be difficult to run for a longer period of time.
Right. Now, also some experts say that these results that are emerging now, they mean the likely end of Palestinian reconciliation between Hamas and Fatah. But on the other hand, we also see this hatred that is emerging within against Benjamin Netanyahu. How does one explain that? Because many people on the street say that this has never been witnessed, this such strong emotions against Benjamin Netanyahu after '99.
You see, last several years, Netanyahu has concentrated mainly on security, settlement in occupied territories and Jerusalem, So he has not given much attention to the national issues, local issues, economy and other factors, And security was his top priority all the time. He was preoccupied. Then his differences has also emerged with the United States, particularly Barack Obama.
Right.
So that was the problem. Third thing, economic crisis is not mainly because of Israel's doing, because of also partly because of the recession in Europe and America. So their export to Europe and America has cut down drastically. So all these factors, and the plus, in the years to come, it's not going to go up because Europe will take time to come out of recession. They are too involved in their own internal affairs, including America. So these are the challenges, will continue. Israel will continue to face, and they have a huge deficit, budget deficit.
Right. Since you mentioned Barack Obama, let me also bring this up. The fractious relationship between Washington, between Obama and Benjamin Netanyahu. Could this be perhaps a new start? Barack Obama beginning his new term and Benjamin Netanyahu there again trying to, come into the picture. Maybe something new can come forth from this? Or
you see, in the past we have seen, the government generally realigned itself with the American administration, They have a very powerful Jewish lobby in America. So that mediates in between and bring down some sort of reconciliation or rapport, or whatever, They don't have major differences, It's the approach, the differences over approach.
Okay.
And Netanyahu is also saying, he's accepted the peace talks, but the problem is, Barack Obama wants early settlement, wants to settle this problem, He's reiterating, in his election speeches and now also, giving more of emphasis, Whereas Israel, they have a different agenda. They have, Iran is on the top,
Right.
Netanyahu's preoccupied. Americans want still Iran to give some time, still wants through peaceful settlement. Barack Obama has also said that all options are open, including military option, but he wants to give peace a chance, So these are the differences. I think with this fractured mandate, Israel would try to come some sort of agreement between the two, because Israel cannot afford to leave America or to leave the West and continue with its policy.
Right. So as they say, Bibi, he's got a tough time ahead. Let's see what happens in the days to come as the final election results are announced. What sort of coalition does get formed? Thank you so much, Mr. Kamaraga, for joining me this week on the show and sharing your thoughts. Time for a very short break. After that, a look at Barack Obama's formal inauguration ceremony and the speech as he kicks off his second term in office. Stay tuned. Thanks for staying with us. US President Barack Obama launched his second term in office on January 21st, delivering an assertive inaugural address in front of the US Capitol. He laid out a clear political battle plan for the next 4 years, specifically mentioning climate change, immigration, reform, and gay rights. Seen at the ceremony were former Presidents Jimmy Carter and Bill Clinton, in addition to a host of VIPs, cabinet officials, and Supreme Court justices who filled the west front of US Capitol. Here's a look.
I, Barack Hussein Obama, do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully execute
the
office of President of the United States
of the United States
and will, to the best of my ability,
preserve,
protect, and defend
the
Constitution of the United States.
After having formally sworn in at the White House on Sunday, a day later on January the 21st, Barack Obama repeated the oath once again, led by Supreme Court Chief Justice John Roberts at his largely symbolic public inauguration.
Can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we held at the twilight's last gleaming, and the home of
Delivering an assertive inaugural address, Obama laid out a clear political battle plan for the next 4 years. For the first time in US history, an inaugural address endorsed gay rights and same-sex marriage. He vowed action on climate change, a hot-button phrase he didn't utter in his 2009 address.
For now, decisions are upon us, and we cannot afford delay. We cannot mistake absolutism for principle, or substitute spectacle for politics, or treat name-calling as reasoned debate. We must act.
Obama commented on US relations abroad as well, pledging to help foster democracy around the world. In fact, Obama used the speech to forge a bond with the country, signaling that he speaks for and with the people more than individual members of Congress. He used the phrase "we the people" 5 times. He used the word "we" more than 60 times.
We will support democracy from Asia to Africa, from the Americas to the Middle East, because our interests and our conscience compel us to act on behalf of those who long for freedom. And we must be a source of hope to the poor, the sick, the marginalized, the victims of prejudice, not out of mere charity, but because peace in our time requires the constant advance of those principles that our common creed describes: tolerance and opportunity, human dignity, and justice.
The Democrat arrived at his second inauguration on solid footing with his poll numbers up, Republicans on the defensive, and his first-term record-boosting accomplishments such as a U.S. healthcare overhaul, ending the war in Iraq, and the killing of Osama bin Laden. But fights are looming over budgets, gun control and immigration, with Republicans ready to oppose him at almost every turn, and Obama still seemingly at a loss over how to engage them in deal-making.
Well, the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, has committed itself to improving the state of the world. Once a year, entrepreneurs, politicians and scientists debate about how this can be achieved. Experts from around the globe meet in Davos to discuss the world's most pressing issues. This year marks the forum's 43rd annual meeting. Here's a closer look.
In comparison to last year, the economic scenario has eased, and this year's motto in Davos reflects the change in mood: resilient dynamism.
We have been caught too much in pessimism, in crisis management. Now there's time to move out, to be more dynamic again, to look at the future. We have a responsibility to shape the future. That's the purpose of Davos.
Day 2 of the forum began with a robust debate about the state of the financial industry, now 5 years after the banking crisis.
We believe we need to create a competitive environment both domestically and globally. First, we need to create a political competition between political powers, and secondly, we need to increase competition between Russian regions.
You're going to have to think most out of the box if you want to dramatically reduce poverty in the next 10 years. So I'm saying to you that the real area where innovation is going to come is not just going to be in smartphones, but it's going to be finding solutions to improving the quality of life at the bottom of the pyramid. That's where you're going to see real cutting-edge innovation.
Italian Prime Minister Mario Monti welcomed UK Prime Minister David Cameron's move to offer the British people a referendum on EU membership, while IMF Managing Director Christine Lagarde said that global economic recovery can continue, but called on the United States to keep the momentum going by avoiding mistakes.
Keep up the momentum means for the United States of America trying to avoid the avoidable policy mistakes, such as failing to agree on the debt ceiling or failing to agree yet again on a budget.
Analysts believe that emerging economies, which have shown general growth amid the slowdown in Europe and the United States, will play an increasingly important role in the global economy.
And a few days back, the Philippines decided to take China to a UN tribunal to challenge its claim to most of the South China Sea, including territory belonging to the archipelago. China was quick to react by denouncing Manila's illegal occupation of the islands in the South China Sea.
Denouncing Manila's illegal occupation of islands in the South China Sea, China said that a request by Philippines for a UN tribunal to intervene in its long-standing South China Sea territorial dispute with China would only complicate the issue. Manila has asked the tribunal of the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea to order a halt to China's activities that the Philippines says violates the Southeast Asian nation's sovereignty.
China has indisputable sovereignty over the South China Sea island and adjacent waters, which has abundant historical and legal grounds. The key and root of the dispute over the South China Sea between China and the Philippines is territorial disputes caused by the Philippines' illegal occupation of some of the Chinese islet and atolls of the Spratly Islands.
China's claims over islands, reefs and atolls in resource-rich waters of its south coast and to the east of mainland Southeast Asia set it directly against US allies Vietnam and the Philippines, while Brunei, Taiwan and Malaysia also lay claim to parts. But a Philippine Foreign Affairs official in Manila said he hoped arbitration would help bring a peaceful solution to the dispute.
We hope that this arbitration panel will be an opportunity to abstract the contentious issue in the West Philippine Sea, let's focus on it separately and go with the other aspects of our bilateral relations.
The South China Sea is estimated to hold up to 213 billion barrels of oil, according to a 2008 report by US Energy Information Administration. Energy-hungry China is actively exploring the resources of the South China Sea, aiming to produce 15 billion cubic meters of natural gas per year from the maritime area by 2015, raising the possibility of disputes escalating.
Time for another short breather. After that, some news from the world of showbiz and a look at the haute couture collection at the Paris Fashion Week. Don't go anywhere. You're watching World Panorama. Time now to take a look at some of the other international news in a quick wrap. Here's Globe Watch.
North Korea plans a third nuclear test and long-range rocket launches that will target the United States. The statement was issued by its National Defense Commission. The statement comes after the UN Security Council on Tuesday voted unanimously to impose additional sanctions on one of the world's most highly sanctioned countries for a successful launch last month of a long-range rocket. Thousands of supporters of Venezuela's ailing President Hugo Chavez flooded the streets of the capital of Caracas on Wednesday, a democracy day, voicing their support to their leader who has been hospitalized in Cuba for over a month. The Democracy Day of Venezuela, 23rd January, marks the overthrow of the dictator Marco Pérez Jiménez in 1958. Celebrations are held each year since then. US transportation officials said they still had no firm answers for the cause of recent battery fires on the Dreamliner and no clear timetable yet for returning the cutting-edge passenger plane to flight. US Department of Transportation Secretary and US Federal Aviation Administration Chief said their agencies are working diligently with the National Transportation Safety Board, Japanese authorities and the Boeing company to try the answer to the problems behind recent safety issues on the Boeing Co. 787 Dreamliner.
And if you've missed this week's biggest sporting events, here's your chance to catch it all. Here's our next report. Chelsea's Eden Hazard was sent off during his side's League Cup semi-final defeat to Swansea for kicking a ball boy. 24 hours after fourth-tier Bradford City knocked out Aston Villa, Welsh side Swansea reached their first major English final with a 2-0 aggregate win after the second instalment of their semi-final ended in a dogged 0-0 stalemate. World number 4 Justin Rose was left bemoaning a penalty on the 17th green as Portugal's Ricardo Santos set the pace with a 7-under par 65 in the Qatar Masters first round on Wednesday. Englishman Rose, the highest-ranked player in the field, incurred a one-shot penalty when his ball moved as he prepared to tap in for par with 18 inches, though he made up for that with a birdie at the par 5 18th for a 68. Santos, with 8 birdies, went one clear of Scotland's Peter Whiteford, England's Anthony Wall and Frenchman Alexandre Kaleka, while 6 players finished on 5 under. The Tourism Department in India's Kashmir hired an expert, Manfred Schäfer, for learning ice stock game, a new winter sport introduced in the valley by the authorities. The Department of Tourism, in collaboration with the Rugby Association, organized the camp in Gulmarg town in Baramulla district. Gulmarg, known as the heartland of winter sports in India, at present provides a picture postcard look with snow-capped mountains, lush beautiful valleys and miniature cottages which attract scores of tourists to this place. Time now for all the very latest news from the world of movies and lifestyle. Here's our entertainment wrap. Pussy Riot, a punk prayer, made its world premiere at the Sundance Film Festival to a sold-out Park City crowd. The documentary tells the story of the members of punk band Pussy Riot, who performed a 40-second punk prayer inside Russia's main cathedral. This performance led to their arrest on charges of religious hatred and culminated in a trial that has reverberated around the world. The film follows the band members and their families as they struggle through the legal system in Russia. Arnold Schwarzenegger braved the wintry weather in London on 22nd January for the UK premiere of The Last Stand. The Last Stand tells the story of the sleepy town of Somerton, overseen by Sheriff Ray Owen and his inexperienced deputies. However, when a notorious leader of a drug cartel escapes from FBI custody in Las Vegas and heads to Somerton to try and cross the border, Owen and his deputies must fight them off with all the firepower they can muster. Christian Dior's new creative designer Raf Simons unveiled his second haute couture collection at Paris Fashion Week, following his critically acclaimed debut for the French fashion house last July. Simons was poached from Jill Sander last year to replace disgraced John Galliano. Simons' fairy tale-inspired Spring-Summer 2013 collection was fairy and ethereal. Despite the snowy weather outside, the set inside featured a topiary garden of green hedges and trees. That's all we have for you in this edition of World Panorama. I'll be back next week, same time, with more world news. Till then, you can join us on Facebook and Twitter for the latest updates from us. As I leave, take a look at this annual fair in Bolivia, which was brimming with minute merchandise for sale. Everything from pocket-sized cars to furniture fit for a dollhouse. The belief is that these tiny figures will become reality. Goodbye and thanks so much for watching.